I bought this absolutely tiny accordion sketchbook. It is so adorable, and since it's absolutely freezing outside, I thought we could all go to a nice sunny place back to the summer. So I'm going to be painting my holiday that I did during the summer in this tiny little sketchbook. Firstly, I started with, obviously, the flight out. I felt like that was just a perfect introduction to the sketchbook. This sketchbook is a hahnemuhle zigzag sketchbook. It is 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters, which is very, very small. This is the smallest piece of paper I've ever worked on, so fine liner really was essential. The second day began with a relaxing pool day. This was really needed. It was the first break since COVID, and I think everyone just needed that initial break, and I hope that you've all managed to have it, especially now that we're in winter and can't really do a lot. It was really lovely, but I decided to actually only do half a page for this one, which was really quite difficult, and I also popped back and tried to fill in parts of the other one now that this one had dried. I didn't really want to use a hairdryer for something so small. I felt like I could just do a few at one time. I decided to use a page and a half for the third painting. It was kind of a panoramic, so I wanted to make sure I had the space. It was the view from the balcony that we were staying at. Looks absolutely lovely, and we could see the beach, which was so nice, but honestly the beach was actually really far away. The big green area that you see between us and the beach was a nature reserve, so we weren't able to walk through it at all. We had to go all the way around, so the beach was a lot further than it looks, but it was lovely that we got to have a sea view. This was a weird painting experience because even though it was slightly bigger, it was still so tiny to do an entire landscape for, and the landscape was really quite busy too, so I did have to simplify it quite a lot. The following day we went on a boat trip. This one was actually sailing. I am perfectly fine on boats, but I've never been sailing before, and it was definitely a different experience. I felt a little bit sick, and my partner was actually sick, so I think we're not going to do sailing again. It was a really lovely view, but it was very choppy where we were. I also went back and just filled in parts of what I could from the last one. As I said, I don't really like using a hairdryer. I've not had a bad experience with a hairdryer. I just think it kind of impedes on the painting experience. I don't think it's very nice, so I do try and avoid it. That's the main reason. Often when I paint, I like to play music or watch videos or films, and you know, with a hairdryer it just kind of means you have to stop it, and it's just not very fun. Unfortunately, the paper was not 100% cotton, and it was definitely noticeable. I will be doing a review on this little concertina sketchbook. If you guys are at all interested in that, then I would love if you could subscribe so you don't miss it. I definitely have thoughts. It was really interesting paper to use. This holiday was from my trip to Fuerteventura last May, so it wasn't exactly in the summer. It wasn't super warm, but it was still lovely to get a little bit of sun. I would love to know if you went away last year, where you went to. Honestly, there's so many places I would love to go. I love to travel, and this one was very much just a break since COVID, and it was definitely needed. I also decided to paint the view from the boat. The boat kind of anchored up, and we were able to do a little bit of swimming, so the view was really quite lovely looking in on the beach. I do love that kind of thing. Next, unfortunately I didn't get a video of this one, but we saw these cute little parrots that this guy was feeding, and they were all wild, but they were just so pretty, so I decided to include them because they were part of the holiday memory. This is the first trip that I will have actually painted, so I think it would be lovely to look back on. Fun fact about Fuerteventura, they have these whale skeletons dotted about the island. I can't remember the exact amount they have. I think it might be like 7 or something, all different whales. Where I was staying, this particular one was a male sperm whale. It was 50 feet long and weighed 16,500 kilograms, which is absolutely crazy. They propped it up on the beach, so it looked really big because it had absolutely nothing near it also. But this died of natural causes. Fuerteventura is very keen on conservation, which was really lovely to see. We finally had a beach day the next day, and so obviously I decided to paint the little landscape. I'm very comfortable with these kind of landscapes, to be honest, because when I do plein air, I also use fineliner and do a similar kind of style. Obviously not this small, this was very small. I used 2 pages and it was still so small, but the fineliner really was essential. Whilst we were swimming in the sea, there was a stingray, very common here and very big. It was a new experience, but it was really quite interesting. There was also a local man that went fishing, got a fish, kind of gutted it, and then hand-fed the stingray, which was crazy, but apparently he does it all of the time, and he gets along really well with the stingray, so that was kind of mental. And then I went back to painting the beach. I do think I kind of made the blue and the yellow a little bit too green in the middle. Sometimes when you do like the sand blending into the sea, there's a really fine line between it going kind of brown or kind of green, and in this instance it went green. But because it's like tropical, I think it still kind of works. Obviously, I had to include a little bit of me relaxing and sunbathing because that's kind of the vibe, that's kind of what was going on. It was quite difficult to fit it in such a small area, but as I said, fineliners were essential because if you weren't using fineliner, like how many layers would you have to do for separation? Then when we were walking back, we passed this adorable church, and unfortunately there wasn't really much of a town that we could get to and see, which was really kind of disappointing, but we were tired at this point, so we passed this church, which was absolutely lovely, and obviously I had to paint it, and I thought that was a very good way to end the first side of this accordion as well, because I really love how it turned out. It had some lovely details and it was just so pretty. I used my white gel pen to try and add some of the foam that was in the sea, and I think this kind of worked well. I don't think it worked well to begin with, but I kind of got the hang of a little bit of a style for it. I would love to know in the comments what you like to do for a summer holiday. Do you like to go abroad like I do, go swimming? Like what do you like to do in your summer holidays? Generally, I would like to go to water parks and do more excursions, but unfortunately where we were based there wasn't really a lot going on, especially following COVID. A lot of stuff was still shut, so that wasn't really the case. But yeah, usually I do have a little bit of a routine that I like to follow on my holidays, but I guess the main thing is as long as it's relaxing and I get to see some of the local area. Some history too, depending on what's nearby. So I then flipped over my concertina and we're now working on the next side. The next side is slightly smaller just by the way that it joins. One side has 2 extra pages because of the way that it's glued down, so this one was a lot smaller. Again, I decided to do some half pages. I felt like even though there wasn't tons that I did this holiday, I had quite a few clips that I wanted to include in this little painting, so I needed to do some half pages. The half pages were really quite difficult to make them recognisable, but I think for this one you can just about tell that they are clouds. This was in the evening. But for the first one, I'm not really sure you can tell it's like the pathway next to a beach, but that's absolutely fine, you know, it's kind of as long as it's recognisable to me and as long as it's quite nice for other people to look at, that's fine. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a video of this one, but one evening we decided to hop over they had like these stepping stones in the pool, and we were fully clothed and we decided one evening that we were gonna hop over it because nobody was around, why not give it a try, and we were absolutely fine, we didn't fall in or anything, so that was obviously ideal. I rarely paint anything from the holidays that I go on. Sometimes I do like one painting, but I've never done a storybook or anything like this, and I think it's really lovely. I love how it turned out. I love that I can just look through the entire week in order and understand exactly what we did, and it does take me back. I do think it's really a lovely size. Personally, I probably would like it a little bit bigger. Maybe if it was landscape, so I mean it being 5 centimeters high wasn't too bad, but probably a little bit bigger would be nice. But unfortunately there wasn't really a middle size. As far as it being an accordion goes, I do like it, I think it's very cute, but obviously I'll talk more about this in the review. It can be a little bit awkward over the bends. I know that's probably most accordions, but that's the only thing. Sometimes the paint kind of bleeds in a certain way, and I just wasn't really a fan of that. Because it also would be nice to go over the folds, and with watercolour, I just don't think that really worked at all. I wanted to include a little bit of what the hotel looked like, and then also the walk down to the beach. This one, it was really lovely. It was like a kind of wooden walkway all the way to the beach, and as I said, the nature reserve was on the side to your left and right. It was a very big area. And then there was this adorable little lighthouse as well, which I just had to include. I do really like how this page turned out. I did these two virtually at the same time. Then I did another little beach. This one didn't work as well as I would have hoped. I think it was just a little bit too overworked. I also think I used too granulating colours, which, you know, is down to personal preference. It granulated really lovely, but unfortunately the sky granulated and the sea granulated, and I think it's just too much. You can see the granulation already, and this paper does really allow for granulation, so if you like that, then that would be perfect for you. I just think having the sky granulating probably didn't work. I think the sky should have been not granulating, but I think the sea is absolutely fine. I also included me walking in the sea. It was just a nice little moment and I wanted to include it. I also decided to include the sand because the sand was really interesting, as you'll see in a moment. I went back and just filled in the sky and all the different areas because once the first layer was dry, I was then able to do the areas that it was touching, and I prefer this way. I use a hairdryer if need be, but I do really prefer it this way. This entire sketchbook took me 2 days to complete, and they weren't even really difficult days. It was like 6 hours for the both days. And this was the sand that I was talking about. I just found it so interesting because it was mostly yellow, but because it was volcanic, there was a little bit of black sand, and I tried to paint this, but it was really, really difficult. So you'll kind of see, I don't think if you saw it on its own you'd kind of know what it was, so that's partly why I have the picture next to it of me standing in the water or standing in the sand, so that you can kind of see that it might be sand, because on its own I don't think you'd have any kind of clue. I do think this paper definitely has its limitations though. I think any more than 2 layers and it just kind of gets overworked. That's just my feeling. I don't know how similar the paper is in the zigzag to the actual hahnemuhle sketchbooks, because I would like to try those. I think one of them might be 100% cotton, but some of the others aren't. It's just kind of what I had heard about it, but I don't know how correct that is. Unfortunately though, I think if you want to use like a small sketchbook like this, there's just not many options out there, so you can't really be too picky with it. But I think as long as you're only doing 1 or 2 layers at a time, it's absolutely fine. I didn't really struggle too much with any of this. It was all quite easy to get down, but I would definitely recommend using a fine liner if you were ever going to try something similar. Try painting your holiday, or just use a concertina sketchbook that's this small. I would definitely recommend something like fine liner just to get the details down. It's a lot easier, especially if you're limited in the number of layers you can do. Whilst we were on the coach back to the airport, I decided to paint the view. It was a really lovely view, but it was also a very sad moment, of course. But it was a lovely holiday, and I love that I have a little sketchbook to look back on the entire week. And I love that the sketchbook took me like 2 days to complete, because I do quite like fast sketchbooks, so it was really lovely. It is very cold outside, so I hope you've enjoyed watching me paint this little sketchbook. Maybe it's reminded you of holidays that you've been on, or maybe it just gets you excited for the summer. I definitely feel more excited for the summer. I prefer the summer over the winter 100%. I'm just finishing up now, and then I'll leave you with a flip through this entire sketchbook. I really hope you've enjoyed watching this one. I definitely enjoyed reminiscing over the summer and warmer times. I would love if you could consider subscribing to my channel. It would mean so much, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.